All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I'm your host, Cardon Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
And today, Andrew Yang has officially passed a large milestone. He has gotten his numero uno poll necessary to advance to the next round of debates, the big stage. Tom Perez, the head of the DNC, of the Democrat National Committee, has basically vocalized a desire to give the grassroots more of a voice, but also to thin the herd. So there was a threshold that had to be reached in terms of unique donors and also in terms of polling data, as well as amount of money received in order to make it onto the debate stage for the last debate. But for the third debate, all right, the one that's going to be with ABC and with not Telemundo, I believe it's Univision, has a much higher threshold. Not only do you have to be at 2% polling now, which I know sounds kind of small and silly, but that's going to weed out a lot of these candidates. But you also have to have had a bunch of other requirements fulfilled, including reputable polls have to place you at least 2%. And Cody, that milestone was reached. Tell the Yang Gang what just happened today.
All right, yeah. Well, the first poll came out that would be considered a qualifying poll that had Andrew Yang polling at 2% or better. He's actually polling right at 2%. Let me move this over for you guys a little bit. One of the interesting things, though, it seems Beto O'Rourke is going to be the, or I cannot say that word right now, O'Rourke. Anyway, he's going to be the first, it seems, kind of front-runner mainstream casualty to Andrew Yang's rise. I mean, he's polling above him, I believe, not only in this qualifying poll. There's another qualifying poll that was done, I believe, by Fox News. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys, where Andrew Yang didn't quite get the 2%, but he did still poll above Beto O'Rourke. So like I said, he seems to be kind of the first mainstream casualty.
But who's our main man that we're going to film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure 3 with?
That's disrespectful
Beto's
to Keanu
journey.
Reeves.
You're right. That is way disrespectful, and I totally love Keanu Reeves. I'm sorry, Keanu, to have associated you with such a failed candidacy. So,
I mean, he's still in the running. But no, I do think it's interesting, though. You can look at this list, and basically anyone polling under 1%, they just kind of say polling less than 1%. And above that, it's Andrew Yang at 1, Marianne Williamson at 1, John Delaney at 1, and then Buttigieg at 2, Cory Booker at 3, Warren at 5, Harris at 12, Bernie at 14, Biden at 35. Like I said, I mean, clearly Beto is out of the running. He's polling not only behind Andrew Yang, he's polling behind Marianne Williamson and John Delaney.
And these polls are intriguing because we've had some very rare election cycles that have never happened like this in my lifetime, where we have so many candidates, so much so that individual percentages matter. I mean, in the early days of the Republican primaries, when there was 23 or not 23, but like 16 or 17 Republicans in 2016, Donald Trump was winning pluralities at only 14% in some of these early polls and early caucuses. And then now, the Democrats have totally jumped that shark and have put up a ton more of candidates, so much so that these small amount of numbers rises matter. But since these are polls and you can only have 100% of the pie, it's really interesting when you have all these candidates, because not only are we seeing some of these favorites that people didn't know about rising, such as Andrew Yang, also such as Tulsi Gabbard and Marianne Williamson and all these others that are going from small numbers to slightly bigger numbers, but you're also seeing shrinking market shares from the big giants. I mean, definitely Joe Biden seemed to be dominating these early polls because, well, it was a popularity contest. People are basically answering yes to the first name they recognized.
Well, he's still doing well. He had a 21-point lead in the Fox News poll from South Carolina. But Biden's still doing well.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go over these rules, though, just so that our audience understands the significance of having reached this milestone, okay? Because it's important to understand these details. They say the witches are in the niches and the devil is in the details. Also, Mark Twain made very famous the following quote. We'll show you a graphic here. That there are lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. But that actually is a quote from his friend Benjamin Disraeli, who I believe was the UK Prime Minister at the time. So we're going to dive into the lies, the damn lies, and the statistics and see exactly what's going on here and what the requirements are. In fact, first let's go over the requirements. Here we are at Democrats.org, and they've published what the requirements are for this third debate. We know that the last debate had a 1% requirement. Now there's a 2% requirement. And basically, this is what's required. DNC Chair Tom Perez, and I'm just reading from Democrats.org here, wants to make sure the primaries and their debates, one, give the grassroots a bigger voice than ever. Okay, I understand that. That's why he's requiring individual and unique donors across at least 20 states. And also wants to showcase our candidates on an array of media platforms. Sure, that's a nod to new media. And present an opportunity for vigorous discussion about issues, ideas, and solutions. Nasal snort, as we remember what happened to Bernie Sanders in 2016. And then 4, reach as many potential voters as possible. Okay, so these are the rules they came up with in hope of doing that. 1, there's a polling threshold. Candidates must receive 2% or more support in at least 4 polls. Well, what polls, you ask? These may be national polls or polls in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and or Nevada that meet the following criteria. And first, because it's the DNC and they love corporate media,
well, I mean, you have
poll
to narrow it down somewhere. Like I can't start like the problem solver politics poll and say, wow, Andrew Yang, 87%. He's definitely in.
Honestly, if we actually made our own poll, we raised the money to hire a scientifically independent pollster, and we could meet all the criteria of a true scientific poll, there's no reason why other companies and other organizations can't do this. I mean, this is corporatism at its finest. But anyway.
What are the odds that our poll would realistically yield results that much different than ABC
It's not
News?
A function of odds, it's a function of talent. But we're going to keep going. Each poll must be sponsored by an approved organization, which presently includes the following: the Associated Press, ABC News, CBS News, CNN, Des Moines Register, Fox News, Monmouth University, NBC News, New York Times, NPR, and basically all the others that we've already heard of, including the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Washington Post, and Winthrop University. Any candidates for qualifying polls must be conducted by different organizations. So you can't just have 2 NBC polls or have 2 Associated Press polls. Or if by the same organization, must be in different geographical areas. So they're isolated. Obviously, you can't count twice 2 different monthly polls in a region that you're doing very well in. And the DNC and its media partners reserve the right to add a Nevada-specific poll sponsor to this list in the near future. And then anyway, basically...
Well, 1 second. That's actually really interesting, right? I have to be honest, top of my head, I couldn't explain why. Why do you think Nevada would be next? I mean, I think the Southwest is kind of purple states.
I think as Joe Biden pissed off that one Nevada Attorney General who said that he groped her.
There's no way. There's no way because that. I wonder then if that's kind of a message from the Democratic Party, if they're saying, hey, we think we actually can win some of these Southwest states. I mean, I believe. I can't actually. Nevada in specific, I don't remember who won that in 2016, but I do think it's fascinating, the idea that they have mentioned that Nevada is also a state we're going to have an eye on. Yeah.
So basically, you have to get 2% in a big and prominent corporately sponsored poll, basically. And there has to be a grassroots funding threshold. The candidates must submit a certification. They got to show proof, okay, from one of their treasurers that they have received a minimum of 130,000 unique donors. I would be curious why that number came up, but 130,000 unique donors, and 400 unique donors per state in at least 20 states. So your support has to be really spread out over half the United States of America. And those have to be submitted by 11:59 p.m. on August 28th, 2019. So, this is going to be tough for the up-and-comers, but doable. And you kind of wonder who in the herd is going to get thinned out. You got to do well in these polls. And Andrew Yang, when we did our last podcast, was at 1.3% in one of the major polls, but he has now passed 2% in the, what's the name of this poll again, Cody?
Well, the poll passed 2% in, I believe. Let's get the exact. It's the NBC/Washington's Wall Street Journal. I don't know why I said Washington. Sorry.
WP Washington Post, WSJ.
Made me laugh for a second there. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that was the poll. I do think also it is worth pointing out. I want to say that Hillary Clinton did win Nevada by a couple points. It was I think like 20,000, 30,000 votes or something like that. So yeah, I can definitely see why Democrats are saying, hey, that's also a state we want to know who's favorable in these states.
And this is where the devil is in the details and the witches are in the niches, and there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. This bodes well for him, but I like diving into the numbers, and you'll notice that they interviewed 800 registered voters, including 440 respondents with a cell phone, and 122 additional interviewees that completed Democrat primary voters, so on and so forth. Basically, they've got a sample size here of 800, which is actually kind of small. I've seen scientific studies done with as little as like 400 or 500. 800's on the low end. Usually once you start seeing televised sample sizes during election season, we're dealing with 1,500 to 2,500 person voter sizes. So if you have 800 registered voters, then, getting the wrong answer from 10 of them will actually help that fraction of a percent that might be necessary.
Yeah, no, it is worth noting that NBC Wall Street Journal poll was a national poll. The South Carolina poll polled 701 people. So for just South Carolina, they polled about the same amount. Again, though, roughly 1,000, I would say, seems to be the number you see.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it's professionally done, and it's done by a reputable company. So I'm not dogging the poll. I'm just saying that it's got a small poll size. So anyway, the good news is Andrew Yang has reached the first of those milestones in a way that demonstrates it will probably be easy for him to reach the rest of the milestones and make it onto that debate stage in September. Cody.
Just one last thing I want to throw in as well into this video. Andrew Yang announces that he raised $2.8 million in the second quarter. I believe we ran earlier, Pete Buttigieg raised 20-something million, but whatever.
Yeah.
The thing I want to point out, though, is that the campaign said that 99.6% of its donors were small dollar donors. 99.6. I mean, that's...
There's something to be said about
considerably less than 1% would be considered large donors. That is really interesting to me. I guarantee you Pete Buttigieg didn't have 99.6% small donors and his 20-something million. So that's really fascinating. It's really cool to see. I mean, the support for Andrew Yang is real, and this is, it proofs in the pudding, so to speak. $2.8 million from all small donors, which, by the way, is a definition of less than $200. So very, very impressive.
In the words of Tom Cruise, show me the money and the polling data.
What was the character name?
Jerry Maguire?
Oh, yeah, they're in the movie. Oh, my God, duh. Yeah.
Yeah, there we are. I didn't want to botch that on national television. This is Problem Solving Politics.